Hey guys, welcome back to Brother Telepathy. This is Graham, Micah, and actually our first guest on the channel. We've got Drew at Iron City Film joining us here for this. This is our mock draft 2.0 post combine mock draft here for you guys. So, Drew, thank you for being kind enough to hop on the video with us, and we appreciate your time. Looking forward to getting into this.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It's an honor to be on here.
Yeah, man, for sure. Cool. Well, let's go ahead and get started here. We're going to go one, two, three. Let Drew kick us off here. Obviously, we met a little bit on Twitter there, being Titans fans together. So, of course, in this mock draft, again, like last time, guys, it's going to be predictive. So, we're just going to go one after another. No trades at this point yet, but we'll see what happens post free agency, that sort of thing. But, Drew, why don't you go and kick us off here with the Titans at one?
Yeah, for sure. So the Titans are an interesting one to start off with here because everything that I've heard, if you ask me right now, I would say I'd be surprised if they're still picking first about 2 weeks from now.
Yeah.
I think if they do stick at one, which again I don't think they'll do, it's Ward. If I would say I think they're going to trade back to three and get Carter or Hunter, whichever one is there. I don't think the Browns would go Carter, but for the sake of this being what we think will happen, if this is the scenario where they stay at one, I'll say Cam Ward first to kind of roll off of that. But if you ask me what I thought the pick will be in April, it's probably Carter at three.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd have to agree with you. I mean, obviously, a lot of my conversations I've had about the Titans have been through Graham, and Graham's kind of feeling the same way. He's at least Graham's been a little torn. He's a big Cam Ward guy. He's also interested in Carter, and he's lesser on Hunter than those two. But it'll be interesting to see what happens there. For two, Graham, you got some to add? Sorry.
I was going to say, just to be fair, I do have Travis Hunter number two on my board, so it's not like I'm that low on the guy.
Sorry.
But,
yeah, considering the possibility of landing a franchise guy is exciting, I know, because my Vikings got us JJ McCarthy, so I know that the excitement that you and Drew probably got at least a little bit in your mind.
I was just going to add that I fully agree with Drew as well, that if Titans stick at one, it's going to be Cam Ward. If they're not going Cam Ward, I do think they look to trade back. Probably not further down than three. Still want to get either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. So, yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Over to the Browns with you.
No,
Micah.
I think that makes sense. Yeah. And for here, I think the pick for me has been pretty easy this whole time. It doesn't sound – I mean, who knows what's really going on with the Myles Garrett situation. He's adamant that he won't be playing, and he wants out of the building. So we'll see what that looks like. But even if he is there, I think Carter makes the most sense. It's obviously pass rush, next to Myles Garrett is still a need. And I just think he's – the best fit for the Browns. I personally like Travis Hunter better as a corner than a receiver. I can't remember. Dude, every time we record, I can't remember anybody's name. The GM, Andrew Berry. That one was on my own. Andrew Berry, yeah. Already said that he likes him better as a receiver, but this is predictive at the end of the day, and I still think that they go Abdul Carter there too.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I think that if they do trade Myles Garrett, that certainly becomes more of a possibility, but at the same time, you've been kind of on the no quarterback for the Browns first round kind of train at this point. So we'll see how that holds up. But at this point here, we are on a very quarterback needy team. And so, Drew, I don't know your feelings on like Shedeur Sanders versus Cam Ward, that sort of thing. But we've been kind of we've been saying that Shedeur Sanders is either going to go top 10 or he's going to go like second round type of thing, or at least like end of the first, maybe somebody trades back in to get that fifth year option type of situation. So that's kind of where we're at. What do you think about Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, so I know we kind of, being in the Titans space, we've had many a debate on Twitter where we kind of end up on the same side. And to speak on my Ward pick, I do like Ward. I'm not upset of Titans taking him first. I think he's like 18th on my board currently. So I like him. I'm not sure he's like, franchise quarterback like some people do, but I wouldn't be upset at that pick. Shedeur I'm much lower on than most people. He's like a late second. He probably won't crack my top 50. It's just a little bit too many limitations for me to get over, specifically athletically. But I have heard the Giants like him. I don't know. There was all that talk from the combine about him sliding because he didn't really nail the interview process. If I had to guess, it's weird because I think you hit the nail on the head where he's either going to go in the top 6. I think the Raiders are probably the most likely spot. But if he doesn't go to the Raiders, I think he probably slides all the way to like 21. Maybe Pittsburgh is the next team to take a shot.
Sure.
But I'd be surprised to see him in the top 3.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I want to get your thoughts on that. I know Micah agrees. I am going to go Travis Hunter here at number 3. Ultimately, the Giants are an extremely quarterback hungry team. They want that franchise guy. I think if we had to guess right now, they make a move for maybe Aaron Rodgers or somebody else. Maybe they like Jackson Dart or somebody later in the draft. I mean, again, maybe not huge on that guy, me personally at this point. But, I think that, again, 3 is a little maybe too rich for Shador at this point. So we'll see if that holds up to be true, though.
Yep. The Pats at 4, they're in a weird spot here. This is not a great pick, I think, for the Pats. Because this draft class, you get like Carter, Hunter, and I think Mason Graham, and then the talent kind of takes a big drop off. And like Ashton Genty's obviously up there too, but running back positional value kind of steps in there.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Pats take a swing on Mason Graham. Barmore, the question is, it's questionable on the future with him, but I think he should be back. I think they have too many needs to address to go DT here. It has to be offensive line. Like you have your quarterback there in Drake May. By far the worst offensive line. A lot of people have mocked Will Campbell here. I'm much lower on him personally, and I think the league probably is too, especially after the combine, seeing the very, very short wingspan. I think he's a guard. I think he probably will be a guard day one in the NFL. Armand Mimbo has been a pick that's kind of picked up a lot of steam here at 4, and I really like that. Again, if Josh Simmons is as healthy as he appears to be, he'd probably be my OT1. But I would not be surprised at all to see Mimbo go at 4 in April, and I think that's probably what I would do in this mock as well. So I think that's a great start for the Pats to kick off their offensive line.
Yeah, and it sounds like we're pretty, and this is the first time I'm hearing a lot of your opinions. Like I know you mentioned Shador's out of your top 50 on your big board. It's interesting to hear what you're saying because it's the first time I'm hearing it. But it sounds like all 3 of us think alike in a lot of the ways. So Shador being at my 43 and Graham's being whatever his is, somewhere in the 40s,
45 or 42 or something like that.
Yeah, that's a sidebar. But everything you said about Membo is I'm highlighting and reiterating it. So I think that's a good pick right there. I like that.
Freak too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He looked phenomenal out there. I love the effort he gave in a lot of those drills too. Watching the combine is my favorite thing of the year. So that's
it's awesome.
I'm super into it.
Out there.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Jaguars. This one for me. Everyone. It's hot. It's the hot thing to take the Michigan guys here, either Will Johnson or Mason Graham. This is the pick that I struggle with the most. Maybe unnecessarily, maybe I'm overthinking it, but I just think Mason Graham is the best player available right here. He's my number 3 player on my big board, so position of need, obviously. Just take the talent when it's there.
Yeah.
Something.
Go ahead,
Sorry,
Drew.
go ahead.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Actually, right before we recorded this or started going live on this, they just released Evan Ingram. So I don't know if 5 is too high for Tyler Warren, but I think he might be in play.
Oh wow, I didn't even see that. Okay, well thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know how high they are on Britton Strange. If they think he's a guy that can come in and be the tight end 1 for them. I probably wouldn't take Warren quite that high, but if that's something that Liam Cohen wants in his offense to have a true inline wide tight end guy, that might be the ceiling.
It's definitely a consideration moving forward, but I think I'm sticking with Graham. I think that's probably just where I feel most comfortable going off the big board. But it's definitely an interesting thought experiment. Maybe if there's a Shador fall, maybe the Raiders even trade up 1 spot to make it happen, something like that. But it just creates more possibilities, so that's exciting to think about. But wow, I would not have expected Evan Ingram to get released. Got to be a cap situation or something like that. But that's interesting. Graham, you wanna take it away here at 6?
Well, I was gonna say they made a bunch of moves here right before
a bunch of people. Yeah.
They did. And then of course they traded Christian Kirk, so they're kind of changing things up already. So that'll be interesting to see what they do. Raiders, another interesting team here, and I feel like this top 10 is very interesting because it's just not that clear cut at this point, and certainly free agency is going to help kind of narrow that a little bit maybe, but. Micah, I know you and I have talked about Ted McMillan here, potentially kind of pairing him up there with Brock Bowers could be interesting. Ashton Genty's being mocked here a lot, and I think that would make sense. Just get another type of blue chip talent there on the offensive side of the ball when you're kind of lacking, some of that high end talent on the team as well. Drew pointed out Shador very likely to go here as well. I think Shador probably does end up being a Raider or a Brown, one way or another. And so we're going to go ahead and go Shador Sanders here. You've got that Tom Brady connection there. I think he's going to be a guy who is kind of pounding the table a little bit for Shador at this spot. Obviously, he's going to have a lot of say in that building. So we are going to go Shador Sanders here at number 6, Micah.
Cool. Yeah, well, I forgot that I'm picking for us, so let me go ahead and do that. Drew, you got any thoughts on the Jets here?
Yeah, the Jets and Panthers are an interesting 2 teams right here next to each other because I think Shamar Stewart goes at one of these 2 picks. I don't know which, but I think the NFL was high on him coming into the combine, and obviously he tested as good as we all thought he would. So I don't think there's any chance he falls past pick 8. The Jets are another team that could use tackle if Mimbo doesn't go at 4. I think he could also go there. I would expect he goes at one of those two spots. Tyler Warren has also been mocked to them a lot at 7, and I see that for them. I would probably lean. I would do Shamar Stewart if I was the GM, but I think they would go Tyler Warren. So I would probably pencil in Warren at 7 right here.
I like that. It's definitely an interesting spot there. Which leads me to the 8 pick, which, as you mentioned, Shamar Stewart is a hot name in that top 10. This one's. I feel like I got all the picks that I struggle with personally. Jaguars.
It's a hard top 10 to pick for.
It's super
That's
tough.
what I'm saying.
And
It's tough.
it's exciting because last year we didn't really see the first shock until pick 8 with the Penix pick, but it seems like this year, I don't know if it's going to be a draft day trade or if y'all think that happens prior to late April, but it'll be interesting to see because even past 1, you really don't know what the rest of the board looks like.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, but here with the Panthers, I'm a big Walter Nolan guy, Drew. I don't know if you know that. I'm a huge Walter Nolan fan. I think that defense has to be the pick here. I know a lot of my friends who are Panthers fans are pounding the table for Tet if he's here, but I just don't. I think it has to be defense. This is a historically bad unit on the defensive side. So ultimately, I do think that it's going to be one of these defensive guys. And as you've already mentioned, I think Shamar Stewart, due to the combine, cracks in that top 10.
Yeah, I think that makes sense too. Combine was freaky, obviously for him. It was like somewhat, close to an all-time combine there if it wasn't for Eamon Worry as well. But yeah, no, I think he definitely is in that top 10 conversation around the league, and he'll end up being there in April, I think, as well. Yeah, now on to the Saints. So, another kind of tricky team to pinpoint what exactly they want to do. I think at this juncture here, we just need some talent. We just need a good player. I could see a world in which they like Ashton Genty. I could see Teteroa McMillan. I could see edge rusher. Any of those I think could be in play. D-line, interior D lineman potentially as well. There's a lot of different directions they could go. I think, though, pairing with Chris Olave, I think Tet McMillan maybe would go here. It's maybe a little bit rich at this point, especially after like the great combine from Matthew Golden. Maybe some teams have him wide receiver 1. But I think as a pairing with Chris Olave, I think Tet McMillan does make sense. So we'll go ahead and put Tet McMillan here, number 9, Micah.
I like that.
Yeah, I think Tet does go there. I think Saints might be the hardest team out of the whole top 10 to pick for, but I think that's probably where they go. And I'm another guy that's been historically low on Tet. I've got like a second round grade on him. He's my wide receiver 4.
Okay.
So I don't necessarily agree with their thought process, but I do think they go Tet there. Tim, this has been probably the easiest position to pick the whole time. This is going to be offensive line. Well, I say that, but no, they've had 2 massive splash.
Yeah, that was kind of my question after that was how do you feel given the trades? If you think it's I mean Genty, my gut tells me that Genty could be a thing, but I don't really know.
Yeah. And that's exactly where I was going to pivot to. You called it out. I think Ben Johnson is going to take Ashton Genty here and kick off that offense. I think Will Campbell was in major consideration for them. That's another guy I probably wouldn't take that high, but I know he's been highly regarded across the league. But with them just getting Joe Tooney and Jonas Jackson, I probably think they steer to get their weapon for Ben Johnson to kind of play with in that backfield. And I think Genty probably goes at the end of the top 10 here.
I like that. And I think given the recent trades that have happened, it makes the most sense. 11 here, I have 2 thoughts, and I think that it's offensive line, and I think that it's linebacker, and I'll give my reasoning for each. Obviously, offensive line is a position of need. That's kind of just how it is. I think if I were to go offensive line, I think that I would actually pass on Will Campbell here and go with Josh Simmons. I think that given the play style of Josh Simmons, he fits more as a I think more true tackle, first of all, and I think that this is your Trent Williams replacement. I think they actually play pretty similarly. This gives me a lot of Darisaw, a lot of Trent Williams in his film. I haven't had a chance to break down all of the offensive linemen, but I'm liking what I'm seeing from Simmons. Obviously, as you mentioned, Drew, the injury is something to consider as well. And then I think linebacker, this is kind of like with the absence of Dre Greenlaw, I think that he hasn't been the same coming back from the Achilles, obviously, in those last few games when he played. On those limited snap count. I think Jihad Campbell could be a super interesting pick here to pair up with Fred Warner, and it could be a really fun pick. I love the idea of that, and after seeing the combine and seeing his movement and coverage in those cone drills in particular, I'm starting to move him up my board pretty rapidly. But ultimately, I think that it's going to be offensive line, and I'm going to go with Josh Simmons.
Yep. Simmons is actually, from everything I've heard, he's on track to have a pro day, which is kind of insane
Oh, wow.
considering the potential tendon tear not too long ago.
Yeah,
But
good for
he's
him.
like fully on track with recovery from everything that I've heard.
That's exciting. Yeah. Well, I'm definitely going to be tuned into that to see how that turns out. But is this Graham here? Or is this you, Drew? I'm trying to
This
remember.
This is
It's
Yeah,
Graham.
this is
Okay.
me. Yeah.
I'm getting all the hard teams to pick for. I don't like picking for them.
I know, man. It's tough, but we're here at the Cowboys. Again, a few different directions. I think there certainly could be offensive line in play. I think that Genty could have been in play certainly if he was at this spot. I saw Mel Kiper, I think, mocked Omarion Hampton right here as well, which I actually don't hate in that sense, but I mean, maybe a little rich honestly at that point. But I don't hate it from the sense that they just need a running back so badly. You could go potentially edge rusher, I guess, if they do end up, not re-signing Micah Parsons for some reason, or trading him or something crazy like that. Never know in our league, so it could be a possibility. But obviously, receiver needs somebody to pair, with CD Lamb, and so I think that. I think Micah, I think you mocked this last time, but let's go Luther Burden right here, number 12. I think that ultimately Jerry's going to have some fascination with the receivers, and I think he's going to be high on Luther Burden. So let's pencil him in right here.
Yeah, I think that Luther Burden. I'll start with this. I think the Cowboys are in dire need of help. There's CeeDee Lamb, and that's about the offense. So there's not much there to get excited about. So I think wide receiver makes sense, and Luther Burden being my top receiver at this point makes sense as well.
Yeah, Burden's been my wide receiver one. I know there's been a lot of talk about him falling like even out of the first round, which is crazy to me. Supposedly there's some character concerns, but that's the lying season that you get around this time of year.
Right.
I would look at Burden if I'm there. I think Will Campbell also gets a big look from them if he does fall to 12.
I agree.
Especially with Zach Martin just retiring. But the Dolphins are another really interesting pick. I think there's really only two positions that are in play right here, and it's safety and offensive line. I think this is the earliest. I don't know about the earliest, but probably the most likely spot where safety comes off the board. I think they should go offensive line, but they've showed a pretty open disdain and just disregard for that position, letting Robert Hunt walk and waiting until round 2 for Patrick Paul last year. So if I'm them, I probably go off the line here, but I think they probably go Malachi Starks. I think he fits that defense really well. Another guy that's had a lot of talk of falling, but I think he's one of the few blue chips in this class, even with positional value at safety maybe not being the highest. But I don't think he falls any further than that.
So I've got a question. Given the I don't want to say underwhelming, but maybe slightly underwhelming combine, you still think that he holds that top safety spot? I know a lot of people are high on Nicky Manwari and what he did, but
Manwari was actually my safety one before the combine.
Interesting.
So he's been one of my favorite players throughout this whole cycle, the whole time. I don't really factor athletic testing too much into my grading, which I know is kind of different from what most people do. But I think they're both first round players, top end first round players. So I prefer Manwari a little bit, but I think Starks is probably the slightly better fit in Miami.
Yeah, and I think it's funny you say that given the history of what the Colts take. Typically, they like their athletic freaks. I think that Manwari here would even be a fun pick. Just like
For sure.
this is the, you know what? I'm actually going to do that. I'm thinking a lot of people obviously tight end at this spot. Did we already take?
Yeah, Warren went at 7.
Warren went. Yeah.
That's
I
right.
think they
Okay.
had a long, hard look at corner too.
Yeah, I think corner makes a lot of sense here. I was kind of transitioning to that as well. I think given what they like athlete wise, that Manwari could be interesting. It's one of those two. I'm kind of making a last minute pivot here. I had something planned out, but got shaken up here, which is cool. We like that. I'm probably gonna go Will Johnson. A lot of people have him as the best player at this point. This is like for me one of the top guys. So I think Will Johnson, position of need, just makes sense there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think maybe Barron gets a look there too, but I think he's a pure nickel rather than outside
Yeah.
guy. So I
Yeah.
think maybe the positional value for an outside guy like Johnson, who's going to be a shutdown guy, they look for him there. But I think him, Barron, and Manwari are all in play there. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah, in agreement. I think we both agree that Barron's definitely more of a nickel than an outside guy. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Now we're on to the Falcons. I mean, I think the most obvious would be edge rusher, or just something like that. So Micah, I know like Mike Green's available right now still. I think he's potentially in play. Probably a little rich for Pierce at this point, just in general, but then also with, again, like character concern, type of issues, they're probably not going this high either at this point. Have we picked
And
Jalen Walker yet? Oh, go
we have
ahead.
not. And if I can
Go ahead.
interject on Mike Green as well, from things I've heard, he's not on the Falcons board anymore. Um,
Was he
that's
got character? Oh, I guess he did have the
yes,
incident at
and
Virginia, right?
yeah. Well, see, the funny thing is the Virginia thing actually was, and I don't know if I can fully lay out the details with this going up on YouTube. It was pretty bad. The
Yeah.
Virginia thing was actually less of what people made it out, and it actually turned out to be something before Virginia.
Oh,
that
I
happened.
see. Okay.
I don't think he'll fall too far, but I would be surprised for the Falcons to pull that trigger, from what I've heard.
Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. I think I'm with you on that so far too. But yeah, I kind of threw it in there at the end, but I don't think we picked Jalen Walker yet. Linebacker, edge rusher out of Georgia. I think would be a fit there. Obviously, keep the Georgia ties going, here and again, get a player with some position versatility, of course. Played a lot of off-ball linebacker, edge rusher too. I think, a lot of people in the draft community are very high on him. I know, Daniel Jeremiah, Dan Brugler, a lot of these guys have him like a top 3-5 player. So I think at this point, again, Falcons need just an infusion of something on their defense to rush the passer. I think this would be the pick there.
Yeah, he's a top 7 guy on my board. I love Jalen Walker. I think
Yeah.
the where he ends positionally is going to be interesting because he's a little small for an edge rusher, but I still have him
Right.
as an edge. Cardinals are a fun one here because I feel like this has to be D-line, whether it's interior or edge. I think like Kenneth Grant is somebody that could go here. There's still a lot of edge rushing talent. They could go Mike Green, maybe Donovan Ezeraku. This could be somewhere he starts getting talked about. He's really rising up boards lately. Again, Pierce, which is weird to say with Pierce and Green's character issues, that Pierce is actually going to fall further because of it. Teams are really worried about him. But I feel like I would go Mike Green, right? I think they probably pull the trigger on that. They need a lot of edge help. We haven't seen Darius Robinson from last year, but they really need injection on that pass rush. They haven't had a lot of production there. So I think you go get a guy like Mike Green who just has an endless pass rushing bag. He is an immediate contributor to that front seven.
Yeah. So what do you actually think about James Pierce versus like Mike Green? I'm personally very low on James Pierce. It's kind of hard for me to get behind like a guy with a power rushing bag at only 230 or whatever he is.
Yeah.
You got any thoughts on that?
They've been one of my harder, like, I've had a couple spots, probably like 3 that I can think of, where it's like 2 players and they're constantly right next to each other on the big board, flipping back and forth, and it's been Mike Green and James Pierce at my edge 3 and 4. I think I've settled on Green being ahead of him. I think I fully agree with you there about him being like a super twitchy athletic guy who wants to be a power rusher. I think that if you can get him with the right coach and teach him to have a bit more of a polished pass rushing plan, he's got the high ceiling. But yeah, a guy that raw, I'm not sure I could get with him this high.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. So I'm actually on the clock here with the Bengals, and I think that receiver I'm not going to worry about. We obviously saw T. Higgins get tagged, so they're not worrying about that as well. Andre Yoshivas is also kind of emerging as like a solid wide receiver 3, so I think that receiver's not a super big need here. I think defense has to be the pick. They're very lacking in kind of all regards on that defensive side. I think that this could maybe be a fun spot for linebacker just because, like, they obviously need defensive line help. I also thought about Kenneth Grant here. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Walter Nolan's still here staring me in the face. Selfishly, I want to pick him, but I don't know. I don't know where he lands. I know for me, obviously, he's a top 5 guy, but for a lot of people, he might be like a 20s pick. Ultimately, I'm going to land on Kenneth Grant here. I think that he's probably just the safest option. Just good defensive line player. Needs to work on the pass rushing a little bit, but I think that he's a great player overall, and he'll fit well there in Cincinnati.
Yeah. And obviously with the Trey Hendrickson potential trade incoming as well, it's got to be defense, I think, at this point. Defensive line in particular. So
yeah, I didn't even mention all the absences they're going to have on the defensive line. So I'm glad I didn't go linebacker there. I'm glad I went with defensive line. But yeah,
no, that was good. You went with your gut and you worked out well. So
yeah.
Good job. Now, if you're the Seahawks, I think in this situation, they'd probably be sprinting to the podium to take Will Campbell. They'd need that interior offensive line assistance. I think they're pretty set with their bookend tackles there. They've got Abraham Lucas. They've got Charles Cross on the other side as well. Obviously, that interior of their offensive line was lacking. Could potentially be a receiver spot as well. They just cut Tyler Lockett. They might be trading DK Metcalf, so could be a receiver spot. You might not be super comfortable going in there with JSN as your number one. Maybe so, though. He was a first-round pick for them. So I think at this point, though, Will Campbell has slid. Again, in NFL kind of circles, he probably does project more of a guard, like you said, Drew, and they need that interior help. So I think this would be Will Campbell in this situation.
Yep. I fully agree with you there. And there's been talk about Campbell kicking inside the center, even, which I'm not sure I love. But they had that midseason retirement last year with their center.
Right.
So I think he could possibly be there too. Bucks are another interesting one. I feel like this is either receiver or edge. They need edge help. Chris Braswell has not turned out to be the rotational piece they thought he would be, or like a solid starting caliber piece of that. Obviously, at receiver, Chris Godwin probably won't be back next season. Even if he is, he's coming off a horrible leg injury. Mike Evans, you don't know how many years he has left in the tank. Probably not many. So for me, this is really between Ezraku and Matthew Golden.
I haven't even considered Golden here. I kind of like the idea of Golden
like
here
both.
as well.
I
Yeah.
probably say Matthew Golden right here because I think they need some youth injected into that receiver room. I am super high on Golden, my wide receiver 2. I love him. I loved him before the combine, and he tested better than I thought he ever could.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's an immediate starting Z for them. It helps take some of the sweat off the brow about losing Chris Godwin. And you just start to build that up a little bit.
Yeah, his combine blew me away. I was definitely expecting, like, based on film, like a low 4.4s guy, and then comes out and absolutely blazes. So he's starting to rise up my board. I know Graham's been a golden truther here for a while.
He's a great player, man. He's got everything you want. He's got the route running. He's got the hands. He's got the catch radius. He's got the speed, obviously. I mean, there's not much to dislike about his game.
Yeah. So we have the Broncos here. Warren here was my favorite pick. I think that's Sean Payton's Jimmy Graham. Obviously, he's not here in this pick, so we're going to kind of pivot. I think weapon is kind of the primary need. I'm not really in love with any of these guys here. I do, however, have a guy who has fallen a little bit further than he is on my board. And I think Colston Loveland makes a lot of sense. He's not Tyler Warren. I think the fit for Sean Payton's a little bit less of what I would love, but I think the value for the player at the pick makes a lot of sense. And I know Harbaugh's probably throwing a hissy fit because he didn't fall 2 more spots, but that's kind of what I've got here at the moment.
Yeah, Sean Payton talked about getting his joker this offseason, and we don't know what that means necessarily. Running back, receiver, tight end, obviously makes a lot of sense. So I think that's a good pick for them. And then with the Steelers, I think definitely Matthew Golden would have been in consideration at this point. I think he'd be a great fit for that offense there, playing that Z for them, like you said there, Drew. Maybe they like Roman Wilson, but again, he's more of a slot guy. And then, of course, you got George Pickens on the outside too. So I think he could have been definitely in consideration. I think Jahdae Barron's probably fallen far enough at this point here. I think he could start a nickel for them and work in that secondary there. So I think, honestly, this is, at this point, for me, a pretty easy pick. So we're going to go Jahdae Barron.
Yeah, I was surprised he slid that far. I think nickels become so valuable in the modern NFL. He's going to be a lot higher than people think on draft day.
Yeah.
And then there's a couple of guys that, like Jihan Campbell, I didn't expect to slide this far, but there's just really nowhere I'd love for him to go so far. Chargers are another interesting one because it just has to be offense. Like it's either Tyler Booker, who again I think has fallen farther than I have him by a pretty significant margin, or it's receiver or running back. So I think right here it's between Egbuka, Hampton, and Booker for me. I love Omarion Hampton. I think they would love a new running back to pair in that, but at the same time, it's so deep at running back, and they have some major offensive holes. You can't go into the next season with just McConkey and QJ as your guys.
Yeah.
You got to have somebody opposite McConkey. So I hate passing on Tyler Booker, but I feel like Egbuka is the pick for them here. You need another guy. I feel like he's a slot guy, but he could probably kick outside for as long as they need him to until they can get some more juice in that receiver room. But I think Ibuka's a day one starter for them, super safe, high floor guy.
And I was actually I thought Ladd actually performed better on the perimeter than I was kind of expecting. Like, I think that he would maybe move. I think I was super high on him coming out last year. I think that him moving to the perimeter might not be the worst thing in the world. At the end of the day, if you have to have Egbuka out there with Ladd, it's whatever. And then QJ, I damn near had a UDFA grade on QJ. I was not a fan at all, but no, I think that's a smart pick right there. I think it's a good pick, which leads me to the Packers. Jahdae Barron was staring me in the face with this pick, and he slid through the cracks. So now we're kind of pivoting as well. Receiver here. I think that this is like a DK Metcalf landing spot. I think that they need a true wide receiver one. None of these guys really do it for me, so we're gonna hop off of that. Interior offensive line maybe is interesting. Tyler Booker here is maybe a thought. I think that it's kind of an interesting spot here. I haven't really considered it too much. Corner, I think that Maxwell Harrison might have played himself into a high role. I'm pretty high on Benjamin Morrison, but given the injury history and stuff and last year's performance, I don't really know if this is a realistic possibility for him. Personally, I would love Benjamin Morrison in the first round, but I think Booker might actually be an interesting spot here. Just like this is BPA, position of need. So yeah, we're just gonna roll with Booker here.
Yep.
I'm kind of. Oh, go ahead, Drew. Sorry.
No, sorry. I keep cutting you off on accident.
No, you're good.
I know the Packers. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Brian Maffey on Twitter. He's kind of like the Packers guy that's famous for that. Like, Packers have this super set measurement scale that they refuse to draft anybody that doesn't fit. This very, very small mold. And there's some DBs that really fit that. Like, Revel's been thrown around. Azaria Thomas, who's like a top 20 guy for me. I know he's fallen to the second round a lot for a lot of people. I think there's a chance they go corner there. I think Booker's gone by that point in April, but I think they look at him for sure if he's there. They need some help on that O-line.
Yeah, good call out. I could see either one. I think our last mock had Jahdae Barron going to them, and I could see that for them too, or just another corner or some type of thing. Especially with potentially Jair Alexander getting moved in one fashion or another, could be an option. Mike, I was kind of grinning a little bit. Mike is a Vikings fan there, Drew, if you didn't know, but I thought you were going to let Booker slide one more spot.
No, I think he's too rich to not take there at 23. But yeah, no, Tyler Booker for the Vikings. I wouldn't be mad at it, but there's a few other needs that I'll let you talk about. But
I think it could have been a great fit for you, but that's okay. We'll you took it. That was good for you by not going into your fandom too.
I channeled my inner rival and went ahead and just shot myself in the foot, as Vikings fans typically do. So
yeah, there you go. Okay, well in that case then, I know Banks has been talked about maybe kicking inside potentially. Again, I don't know if Banks goes right here. I think interior D line, Derek Harmon. I think this could be a spot for him potentially. I don't know. Again, Jihad Campbell is such a great player. He's fallen so far. I know you got Ivan Pace Jr. in there in the middle there, Micah. I don't know if you'd be comfortable with having Jihad Campbell in there too, but, I think there's corner. There's a few different directions you got. Morgan Hampton could maybe go here as well. What are your thoughts? Let's gather that first.
I'm going to let you make the ultimate pick. Walter Nolan's my favorite player here. I also think that Kenneth Grant, if he were here, would also be one of my guys that I'm interested in. Jihad Campbell, obviously, like you said, he's my 18th player on my big board. Probably going to be rising here soon. Just going back and revisiting his film, but yeah, I think corner makes a lot of sense. I think that. I'm trying to kind of see the layout. I'm kind of trying to see the layout of the class in my head. I think Harmon is one that's been in circles. Tyleek Williams Harmon as well.
I think it'd be interior D line for you here. Again, just too much talent in the class overall. I think Harmon would be a good fit for you guys too. So let's go with Derek Harmon.
Yeah, I was impressed with Harmon and Tyleek Williams. I thought Tyleek Williams looked super fluid in those cone drills, in the little ring, the little circle figure eight drill. Yeah. The bag drop or whatever it's called. I think he looked really good in that. Not that that's gonna plunge him into the first round or anything, but it's something to note for sure. So Drew, what are you thinking here?
Yeah, I think this is another team that would have killed to have Tyler Booker fall to them. With Kenyon Green not working out at all, they desperately need some interior offensive line help. If they're that desperate, I think Donovan Jackson could possibly go here. The guy that I think, honestly, if you want a true let him fail inside guy, it's Donovan Jackson. I would let him start a tackle after the playoffs and use guard as a fallback. But I think if they guard, he could be as high there. again, it just feels like every pick I have to give Jihad a huge consideration because I don't think he should have fallen this far. I don't think their or their inside linebacker situation is that great. So if Campbell were to fall this far, that could be the pick. I think with them getting Christian Kirk too, I probably don't think they go receiver like they've been mocked a couple times here. I think Jihad Campbell's probably the pick if he falls this far for them, just to kind of bolster that defense. Get a guy that's awesome value this late in the first, and he's got that connection with the linebacker head coach there, former Alabama guy too.
I was gonna say it feels like a D'Amico pick all day
For sure,
on that
D'Amico
one.
pick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, Micah. You're up.
Is this me? No way, this
Yeah.
is me. Is it?
Yeah. It's
Dude,
you.
I must have got okay. Well, I would have taken Jihad Campbell if he were to fall one more, but okay, I must have. Okay, yeah, this is definitely me. I was tripping there for a second. Interesting group of players here. I think Banks is kind of staring me in the face as like a flex tackle guard guy. I have him as a tackle. I know a lot of people have him as a guard, but I think there's some position flexibility there, as you've already mentioned. I think linebacker is interesting. I think. Oh, you already took Jalen Walker. That's right. I would probably go Banks here just because tackle is still a position of need. They're still in that window to where, obviously, bringing Stafford back, you're still trying to compete. They obviously, had some success there late in the year. So we'll see where that takes them. But I like Banks here.
Yeah, I think that makes sense, especially with the Jonah Jackson departure. They probably could look to fill that need there, potentially in the first round, like you talked about. So I could see it. With this here for the Ravens, I thought for a second, if Jihad Campbell fell to them, not necessarily like they need linebacker, but it's just like these good teams just end up getting guys at the end of the first round that should not have fallen as far as they do. It just would have been poetic. So, but yeah, we're here. We're going to pivot here. We're going to go Donovan Ezeruku there out of Boston College. I think, again, let's just keep building up the D line for the Ravens. Let's keep building up a skill or a strength for them, I should say. Let's just keep building that up. This is a great player. Like you said, Drew, going to be rising up boards here. I think he's definitely going to make it in the first round in April.
Yep, for sure. Lions are an interesting one. I feel like they pretty desperately need edge right here. They've got one edge rusher under contract going into next season, and that guy just blew up his leg last season. So I think you're looking between Micah Williams and Nick Skirton right here. I think possibly James Pierce, but Campbell is such a culture guy. I'm not sure if he really wants to take the swing on a guy with those kind of character concerns that we've heard about. So I think probably Michael, a guy that's an unreal athlete at only 19, 20 years old, whatever he is, so young. I feel like the Lions are more than comfortable taking a swing on those traits and seeing if they can develop him into an elite edge duo aside from Hutchinson. I think they're super happy that Michael falls to the end of the first year.
Yeah,
I like that.
And
Great run stopper too.
Yeah, the depth is a huge problem for that front seven, so I think that makes a ton of sense. And as you mentioned, only one guy under contract, so they're kind of got their hands tied at least as we stand today. Washington, their philosophy this offseason, or even just in the past week and 2 weeks, they've been making moves for the now. And I think that continues with James Pierce falling at this point. I think that you kind of just scoop up the guy who you think is going to turn out to be the best on the board, and that's the guy for right now, position in need. So you kind of wash your hands and move on to the next one.
I think Eamon Worry is still on the board, is he not? I think that's another thing they give major consideration.
Yeah, Eamon Worry is still on the board. Yeah, that is definitely a pick that. Honestly, I forgot he was even here, so that would have definitely been in the consideration. But I'm still content with James Pierce at that spot. I think
edge,
they need edge, so can't complain either way. But I have a feeling we might be seeing even more go here soon. So
I was gonna say, let's go ahead and just take him now. Why not? Here, just for the Bills. I mean, I think that interior D line's in play. Your boy Walter Nolan is still there, so it could have been a possibility. Eamon Worry's just too good. I think let's just go ahead and take him here before the Eagles inevitably take him at the end of the first round. As they just, again, another one of those good teams at the end of the first round, just always end up falling to
everything works
them.
out for them, dude. That's just how it is with Howie. Everything falls into his lap. But Drew, this is your last pick here. What are you thinking for the Chiefs?
Yeah, the Chiefs, I feel like with them getting rid of Joe Thuney, Sua Matea has not worked out like they wanted at tackle. He's going to be getting reps at guard this year. He's going to be concerned they have a gaping hole at tackle. I think they think pretty hard about Nick Skirton here too. I think that's a guy they could take a look at, but I feel like it just has to be tackled. The positional need is too great there. And I believe, is it Josh Connerly, the next guy on this tackle board?
Sorry, let me pull it up for you so you can take a look at it.
Him and Gray Zabel. I don't know if he's a tackle or guard for you. But
So, yeah, Zabel is a pretty easy inside guy for me. I have some major, like, he's really short arms and some major athletic limitations for him. He's been thrown around at center a lot too, I've heard. But yeah, Connerly, I'm a big Connerly guy too. I love tackles that can move, that are great athletes. And they have just that gaping hole at left tackle. I think Josh Connerly's the easy pick for them here.
Yeah,
makes
and
total sense.
and I think to round us out, Walter Nolan makes perfect sense here as well. I think that with the departure
does.
of dude, see, this is what happens with me and names. The free agent D tackle. Why am I blanking on his name?
Milton Williams?
Milton Williams. Thank you. A guy the Vikings are interested in. Sidebar, but thank you, Drew. Yeah, with Milton Williams departing, I think if you slide Walter Nolan next to Jalen Carter, that is absolute carnage, and I love the idea of that. And ultimately, that's what I'm going to do here. So yeah, that is our that is our first round mock with Mr. Drew here. You guys got any final thoughts or anything you wanna share?
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised to see Nolan fall that far. I think, well, I say that, but I think he's another guy that's had some pretty major character concerns as well.
Yeah.
I know teams were not happy with him not testing. He was not a guy that was solidified high enough to kind of skip out in Indy, and he did. But like when that guy's hot, he is white hot.
Yeah, yeah.
But he will just kind of disappear for like games at a time too, which is I think keeping him a little bit lower for me. But I think that's a really frustrating pick for him to fall into Howie's lap. A guy that talented. I don't think there were any crazy slides. You know, Jihad Campbell fell a little bit further than I thought he would. Maybe Jade Barron too. Emin Worry, maybe I could see him going higher in April. But overall, I feel like this was a pretty accurate, close to home draft for what's gonna happen in April.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, of course, none of this could be accurate in a week after free agency occurs.
Oh,
Like,
yeah, of
we'll,
course. That's
we'll,
gonna change so much.
yeah, we'll see what happens. But it's a fun exercise to do beforehand. It goes to show a little bit of what these needs could be addressed in free agency potentially. But of course, some teams don't want to pay top dollar for those positions and would rather just fill those needs in the draft, especially with like a deep D line class here, that sort of thing. So. Yeah, while we were doing it, I was like, man, there's some guys sliding. But after looking at it, like you said, Drew, a little reflection here, I think it's fairly accurate for right now. We'll see, of course, how things all turn out. But I think that's pretty much it. Micah, do you have any main takeaways or anything before we wrap it
Yeah,
up?
a few things, Drew. I think that you nailed it, the character concerns. But as we know, the Eagles do not shy away from character concerns, as we saw last year. When Jalen Carter went, that was last year, right? Am I getting my years mixed
2
up?
years ago.
Carter was 23, yeah.
2 years
Yeah, it was
ago.
2 years ago.
Yeah, but regardless, the point still stands. They don't necessarily shy away from the character concerns, so I like that fit. Yeah, no, I think that's the nature of the draft. Is this is a deep class, and as everyone has already said, there's going to be guys who slide. That's the nature of the draft every year, and in this case, that is going to be brought up to 10 with the amount of talent, kind of in the same tier for a lot of people. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. There's guys picked in around that top 10 who could end up being second round guys, and that's just the nature of the draft. So I'm excited to see where we go from here. Drew, do you have any? You want to go ahead and shout out Twitter link or anything like that? You want to plug yourself real quick?
Yeah, for sure. Pretty much everything I do, you can find at Iron City Film on Twitter or X. That's just where I post all my cut-ups, scouting reports, just 24/7 ball talk over there. I just once again thank you guys so much for having me on. It was an honor to be on here. So much fun.
Dude, thanks so much for the time. First guest on the channel. I mean,
That's
so
what I say. Yeah,
Honor,
huge honor there, right? I mean, yeah,
sure.
no,
super cool.
but
Yeah.
No, I'm being sarcastic, of course, but yes, no. Thanks for joining. It was a pleasure to have you, and a fellow ball knower here, and someone who's done a lot more deep dive into the NFL draft than we've even done. So we appreciate your knowledge and insight. So thanks, man.
For sure,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, and we got more videos coming soon, so we appreciate everybody tuning in. We got a longer video for you, so hopefully this is an enjoyment to a lot of you. And till next time.
See you guys later. Thanks.